It's a topic that has divided our nation for decades. Abortion continues to be the driving force behind the latest controversy of one of America's most notable healthcare clinics, Planned Parenthood. What is the nation divided about, and why are some advocating for this leading healthcare provider to be defunded by the government? I'm Rena Kamal. This is Our Issues, Twin Cities.
I had to marry him, because how could I tell somebody else that I murdered my own child? And how could they accept that? I was a murderer.
Fear was the main driver of Anne Marie's life-changing decision.
Had an abortion in my middle 20s. Prior to that, I had protested against abortion when I was a senior in high school, and then 8 years later, I found myself on an abortionist table. Scared I'd be alone, scared that to tell my family that I was pregnant outside of marriage. When the baby's father, when we found out I was pregnant and the baby's father told me he wasn't ready to be a father, I took that as, I'm not gonna stick around. And so the fear just overwhelmed me. I wanted somebody to come into my life to tell me I didn't have to do that, but it wasn't happening, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't know there was resources out there. I didn't know there was a place I could go that would help me. I wasn't finding it. When I went to the clinic to get the pregnancy test, the only information she gave me was the abortion clinic phone number.
What was your experience like when you aborted the baby?
My boyfriend went with me, and he was the only man in that room. It was standing room only. Mm-hmm. 2 young women came into the doorway, and one was holding a brand new baby. And I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, what is she doing here? Why is she doing that? Then they called my name, and I went in for a counseling session. And the counseling session was, why are you having the abortion? Well, you know, I was a party girl, and so I said, well, I'm on drugs, and I don't want something to be wrong, with the baby, and so I just came up with, every excuse I possibly could. I went into the room where the abortionist would meet me. First time I ever saw him, I think he had a mask on, so I didn't even see him full-faced. As he started the procedure, and I could hear the vacuum noise, and I could feel the tugging, and it was probably the most pain I've ever had in my life. And what he was doing was ripping and sucking apart my baby, limb by limb, piece by piece. And I allowed that to happen.
How did your life change after the procedure?
I was never the same after that.
Controversy continues to swirl around abortion after the anti-abortion group Center for Medical Progress released secretly recorded videos claiming Planned Parenthood representatives engaged in the illegal sales of fetal tissue.
These videos have, they've shown a callousness that's a part of the nature of the abortion industry with regard to human life.
As the executive director of Pro-Life Action Ministries, Brian Gibson's organization has been at the forefront of the debate, triggering crowds of hundreds at the many past protests. What is your stance on this ongoing controversy?
When you see Dr. Dakota from Planned Parenthood, one of the high-ranking officials for their organization, sitting, eating a salad and drinking wine out of the big glass and discussing body parts of human beings who have been aborted, and then how to dispose of them, sell them, and so forth. It just is shocking, and that isn't the worst of it. It gets worse as you go in deeper and deeper into the videos as they're unveiled. So, and of course, at one point, we actually see inside the abortion facilities what they call their product of conception room, or their whatever it is, and where they reassemble the aborted babies and go through the bodies.
It needs to be exposed. People need to know the truth of what is going on, because there's over 50 million children that have lost their lives to this horrific. I mean, who are we as a society that we allow this to happen?
They were the result of a years-long, several years in the making, well-funded, fraudulent effort to depict our doctors and other personnel in ways that are simply not true.
Sarah Stows, the president of Planned Parenthood Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota, claims the controversy is formed by a small group of extremists creating havoc across the nation.
After 100 years, why has this issue come up?
The Center for Medical Progress is part of a group of extremists on the cultural right wing who've been engaging in entrapment techniques with Planned Parenthood now for a number of years. And that's why they use these immoral and unethical tactics to try to entrap our wonderful colleagues around the country, and then using hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of tape, cobble together these highly edited videos to make it seem like our doctors said things that they simply did not say.
You're saying whether or not this is a fake research company doesn't matter, these videos are real?
Exactly, and what is being said in the videos, it's what's being said by Planned Parenthood officials. What you see when you see these tiny bodies, that really is inside a Planned Parenthood facility. Actually, I believe 2 or 3 different ones. So it's depicting the reality of what is going on at Planned Parenthood.
What are you guys doing to fight these allegations?
We are trying to educate people so that they understand. Here in Minnesota, we don't engage in fetal tissue research. Even if we did, there wouldn't be anything wrong with it.
When we return, the divide over Planned Parenthood.
Some people have a hard time keeping these two concepts separate.
In September, a campaign led by the GOP concluded with the House of Representatives to defund Planned Parenthood. The bill would take the $235 million of savings and invest it into federally qualified health centers.
Do you think that the government should defund Planned Parenthood?
Absolutely. Funding an organization that's engaging in practices as barbaric and horrific as this is just obscene on the part of the American taxpayer. We should not be paying for their existence.
We don't need Planned Parenthood. The only thing we need Planned Parenthood for is abortions. So why should we fund them for other things that another clinic can do?
But since the Democrats have the votes to block the measure in the Senate, and President Obama has voted to veto any spending bill that does not fund Planned Parenthood, the proposal isn't likely to become a law, but could lead to a government shutdown.
If the government succeeds in defunding Planned Parenthood, how will this affect the organization, and most importantly, how will it affect women?
It is not as if Planned Parenthood gets a big check from the federal government. Planned Parenthood is a healthcare provider. We are reimbursed for services that we provide to patients the same way every other hospital, every other clinic in this country is reimbursed for services, and they're reimbursed by the federal government through the Medicare program, through the Medicaid program, and through many other smaller programs too. Everyone that provides services in healthcare is reimbursed for services. To talk about defunding Planned Parenthood means cutting off women's access to healthcare at Planned Parenthood.
So how would that affect women ultimately?
Ultimately, it would affect women very, very badly if that happened, because as I say, 1 in 5 American women have been our patients. We're very important to the backbone of women's health care in this country. We lead in terms of things like IUDs, being able to help women have access to leading edge advances in clinical research and in birth control and other forms of women's health care that the rest of the healthcare community catches up with us on, years down the line.
Calling them the nation's abortion giant, right-wing organizations say that although Planned Parenthood's claims that 3% of their medical services goes towards abortions, the hundreds of thousands of abortions performed each year provide an enormous revenue.
There seems to be a lot of misunderstanding of how much or how little government money Planned Parenthood uses for abortions. Really, what are the facts?
Planned Parenthood uses zero federal tax dollars for abortion because because abortion cannot be funded with federal tax dollars. So there isn't any money that goes to abortion inside Planned Parenthood or anywhere else. It does go to cover birth control, however, and some people have a hard time keeping these two concepts separate.
Planned Parenthood now says that zero federal tax dollars goes towards abortion. So why should the government defund an organization that has been so vital for women for almost 100 years?
Well, first I would argue they've not been so vital for American women for 100 years or almost 100 years, but that's another issue altogether. Let's go right to the heart of this. They are engaging in very barbaric practices. They're killing innocent, defenseless human beings. In these videos, we see them talking about changing how they do it. The abortion procedure, which is against medical ethics, in order to procure body parts to sell. And we see the body parts. We see these babies and so forth. When we fund an organization that does this, it doesn't matter where the funding stream is intended to go to, it allows them to do this. Our tax dollars, whether they go directly to pay for abortions or not, are making it possible for Planned Parenthood to do abortions and to be built up and to become the abortion giant they've become over the years.
Abortion was practiced in the United States until about 1880. Soon after, most states had banned abortion, with the exception to save a woman's life until the early 1970s. In a landmark decision in the case of Roe v. Wade, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled the legality of a woman's right to have an abortion in 1973. The ruling recognized the constitutional right of women to make their own personal decisions, including the decision to have an abortion without interference from politicians.
Should Roe v. Wade be overturned?
Yes, absolutely.
What about in extreme cases such as rape or incest? Are there other exceptions?
Are there exceptions for when abortion should be allowed? I do not believe so, no.
Not even in rape or incest?
No, and I know those are very difficult ones, and those are always the cases that are used to be the reason why we should allow for abortion in the United States is because of these extreme and very rare cases that take place. But the reality is, when you start digging into this and looking at it, is that women who have been raped, they need to be loved and supported instead of having a dead baby. And what we hear, certainly anecdotally, from women who have been raped and had abortions is that they have a greater difficulty overcoming the rape than women who have been raped and decided not to abort their child. And so this is a discussion we can have in the public. Let's talk about this instead of saying, because of rape, we're going to allow abortion on demand through all 9 months of pregnancy for any reason, which is the way it is under Roe v. Wade. So it makes no sense whatsoever.
Don't you think that it's a woman's choice to choose what she wants to do with her body and with her pregnancy?
It's absolutely her choice with what she does with her body. But when there's a pregnancy, there's another body, a completely separate human being. And that unborn child may not even have the same blood type as the mother. So we've got a completely independent human being, so we need to be looking at what human life is worth.
What options will women have if they do not have the right to choose to abort?
In every country in the world where abortion is legal or illegal, the rate of abortion is about the same. And abortion didn't just start with Roe versus Wade. Abortion is a practice that is as old as human pregnancy is as old. And so making abortion illegal won't stop abortion. What it will do is it will stop safe, legal abortion.
Don't you think that women will turn to alternative ways to abort, such as the black market?
Without it being illegal, with it being still perfectly legal in this country, so I'm not sure that changes much.
You don't think it will increase, though, if abortion becomes illegal?
It could, it could. But we're a society that has the capabilities of helping people. I think the real issue is whether we're going to take the resources we have as a society and we care for people, or if we just get rid of our problems using the cheap, easy way, which ends up being a very barbaric action.
Up next on Our Issues Twin Cities, how the battle over abortion birthed two different organizations.
Despite her conservative upbringing, Grace has been using Planned Parenthood services for years.
Why was your family opposed to the organization?
My parents were very religious and raised me to be very religious, very deep Southern roots in the Southern Baptist beliefs, did not really support any activity that was pro-choice, and organizations like Planned Parenthood that offered abortion services. They believed that to be morally and ethically wrong.
What made you choose to go to Planned Parenthood?
Once I got married and I started looking into my own family planning, I realized that I needed an alternative, that my husband and I weren't ready to have children, that wasn't maybe in the 10-year plan further down the line, and so I knew I needed a solution to that. And I went to a general practitioner to talk about birth control options and thought an IUD would be best for me, long-term birth control. And she just looked at me point blank and said that she'd never done one before. She'd never inserted an IUD, and I was not going to be her first try. So I looked into other options, and I was trying to look for things that I could go to outside of work so I wouldn't have to take time off, and I came across Planned Parenthood.
Dating back to 1916, founder Margaret Sanger, her sister and friend, opened America's first birth control clinic in Brooklyn, New York, during a time when contraception was still illegal. Sanger's clinic provided contraceptive advice to poor and immigrant women. Today, Planned Parenthood has over 700 clinics nationwide, providing sexual and healthcare education to over 5 million men and women of all ages each year.
Many people, when they think of Planned Parenthood, when they think of the services you offer, they think of, you know, abortion or just birth control options. But can you just talk about the services that you guys provide?
Yes, absolutely. So we provide the full range of reproductive health care, and that includes family planning and contraception. It also includes STD testing and treatment. We also do cancer screenings, so we do clinical breast exams and Pap tests, which can detect abnormalities in the breast and mean that we, you know, then we can refer you on to a specialist who can do some diagnostic testing. And a Pap test will help tell us if you are at risk for cervical cancer. So, so we do that. We also do general education and counseling, and we provide men's health vasectomies and men's health wellness visits.
We focus a lot on reproductive health care. So we help women who are young learn how their bodies work so that they can take care of themselves, understand what to expect as they age. When women come to us, and men, they walk out not just having received some healthcare services, but having received some very essential information about how to take care of themselves for the long run, how to be adults, how to be empowered and in control of their lives. It's one of the things that women love so much about Planned Parenthood, because when they come to us, they're not just getting health care, they're part of a broader movement of women who are linking arms, you know, effectively with one another to change the world.
The main mission is to do work to try and save babies from being killed by abortion, help the women so that they decide not to have abortions.
In 1981, Pro-Life Action Ministries began with a sit-in conducted by 4 young adults inside Planned Parenthood's abortion center in St. Paul, Minnesota. Since then, they remain on the front lines of the abortion battle.
If Planned Parenthood is shut down by the government, what other options will women have?
Nationally, Planned Parenthood Federation of America is stating that their income that's non-tax, the non-tax dollar income that they receive, that some very large portion of it comes from doing abortions. So they're making money doing abortions. To cut their funding off, the spigot off, doesn't mean they're shut down. Now there may be some that need to because they can't afford to keep them open without our tax dollars. Where do women go for health care? Well, first of all, I don't think Planned Parenthood really offers health care. They offer sex care. It's very limited.
They offer an abundant amount of services for women and for men.
It's all sex care related. Everything is. So the cancer screenings are related with sexual activity. The birth control, of course, is related to sexual activity. All these things are based upon that. And there are 30 times as many, or some number like that, of government-funded healthcare organizations that offer complete health care for men and women than there are Planned Parenthoods. If Planned Parenthood closed right now, all this would be absorbed very quickly with what already exists.
There's 700 Planned Parenthoods around this country. There are over, 2,000, 10,000 something, healthcare centers, federally healthcare centers that they can go. A woman can go and get her mammogram. She can go and get her pregnancy test. She can go and get her birth control pills at these other places.
Today, Anne Marie's life is dedicated to raising awareness for pro-life. Why is it important to share your story with others, other women that maybe are experiencing this or thinking maybe to abort?
I tell my story so that I can expose my scars, so that others can find healing. And I also tell my story so that those who may be thinking about aborting their baby will really think about it and choose life. I was never able to have children again. All my friends are having grandchildren, and I will never have a grandchild. But I was told at the abortion clinic I would be able to have other children, that I was young. You'll go on, you'll have other children. Didn't happen.
But for others like Grace, organizations such as Planned Parenthood provide women with the right to choose what they want for their bodies. How important is Planned Parenthood for women?
Planned Parenthood is vital to women, especially today and especially in today's political climate. Planned Parenthood offers women an objective approach to their health care. I think women everywhere deserve and have the right to complete health care access and to make choices about their bodies, and Planned Parenthood is there to be able to help you do that.
Thank you for joining me this week on Our Issues Twin Cities. I'm Brenda Kamal. See you next time.